Hey everybody, I'm Diane Hill, and I'd like to share my testimony with you today. I'd love to say that I was raised up in the church, but I wasn't. I went as a young child, and I vaguely remember Sunday school and a few Bible schools, but as far as being raised up in the church, I wasn't. All of my siblings were older than me, and we got into other things as we grew up, and church just became not in our vocabulary. And I was 18 years old, and I had already completed a year of college, and I was fixing to be married. And we were going to a church here in town in Louisville, and we were having a revival. And I hadn't thought the first thing about giving my heart to Jesus. It never crossed my mind. And the preacher was preaching on hell. And I mean, fire and brimstone hell. And I hadn't heard of this hell, but it didn't take me long to realize I didn't want any part of it. And I had that pressure, that deep pit in my chest. And I went down that night and I gave my heart to Jesus. And I remember I was baptized a few weeks later, and I remember that night, that feeling I had. I was happy and I was relieved, and my eternity was set, and I was done. I didn't have to do anything else. Well, my spiritual life didn't change after that. I attended church, but I wasn't worshiping, I wasn't praying, I wasn't even reading my Bible. And eventually we fell out of church. We moved out here to Bond Community to build our house, and a few years went by, and God blessed me with our two beautiful children. And they were little, and I kept having this dig, this something was missing. I had a void, and I knew what it was. I knew I needed to be in church. I knew my kids needed to be in church, and I wanted them to know Jesus. So we started coming down here to Murphy Creek. I started bringing them. And that went on for a while, and I still had that feeling. I was working all the time and raising two kids, but there was something missing. And finally, one Sunday morning during the invitation, I went down, and the pastor at that time was Brother Stringer. Fine, godly man who loved Jesus, and I know he's still talking now. And I told him my story, and I remember my exact words. I said, I am not living right, and I need to rededicate my life to Jesus. And we talked, and that's exactly what I did. Went through the baptismal waters again, and I remember I had that feeling of relief, but this time it was different. I was 32 years old, and I realized that 18-year-old didn't have a clue. God had opened the door for me that night, but I didn't go in. And I'm so thankful that he didn't give up on me. He was there with me, that I really believe all those years he was with me and pushing me. And I think of myself like the parable of the lost sheep. I was that one that he left those, I get emotional, that he left those 99 to go find. And I'm so thankful that he did. Well, then, my spiritual life did change. I started serving in the church and praying more and reading my Bible. But I've got to say that it wasn't until about 10 years ago when I took that discipleship course, Master Life, that caused me to do a deep dive into my spiritual relationship with him, my one-on-one. And it taught me how to pray and how important that quiet time is to just abide in him. And I've become stronger ever since. God saves us to serve him, to worship him, to tell others about him, to keep his commandments, but mostly that great commandment. You're to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I strive to do that every day. But I'm still a sinner. I have my hard days, but I know he's with me. He gets me through those days. He forgives me. And again, I still thank Him every day for not giving up on me. You know, I read something the other day. It said, "You may not know what the day brings, but you know who brings the day." And that really gives me comfort. Could that be your story? Were you saved as a child or even as an adult, but you hadn't fulfilled your side of the covenant? You know, God, He's not giving up on you either. Or do you need to take that first step? Today's the day. Do you need a place to do that? We'd love to have you here at Murphy Creek. Come join us. Thanks for listening and have a blessed day.